Private lesson pitfalls that most baseball and softball parents aren't aware of. Warning, Will Robinson. Below are 3 pitfalls so common and so often overlooked that I've chosen to start this guide with them to hopefully ensure that you at least consider them. The more things change, the more coaches need to as well. The rules of baseball and softball may not have changed much in our lifetimes, but how professional coaches and trainers effectively prepare athletes for successful and physically sustainable careers in these games has changed a bit. Unfortunately, some instructors teach now defunct or outdated techniques and strategies that current research and modern elite athletes have shown to be wrong. Baseball and softball are not static, fixed things, and so, just like any profession, the kinds of knowledge that needs passed to athletes who want to succeed at the highest level is constantly evolving. According to Stanford professor Dr. Carol Dweck, in her best-selling book, The New Psychology of Success, in a fixed mindset, people believe their basic qualities like their intelligence or talent are simply fixed traits. They spend their time documenting their intelligence or talent instead of developing them. Some instructors tip off possible fixed mindsets by following opening statements like, "I played in the pros," or "I have coached for 30 plus years," with only a long list of well-documented and memorized personal and coaching accolades meant to convince you to listen to them without question. Such potential red flags will be explored in greater detail in a bit, but for now, it's good to note that if the same coach instead follows, "I have coached for 30 plus years with, and I have never stopped being a student of the game," that may be an instructor worth seriously considering for the job. But returning to the idea of static learners, you wouldn't trust the best engineer that ever touched a Model T car in the 1920s to fix your Tesla because science and technology have likely passed that engineer up. These wonderful games that we call baseball and softball are still developing, and what may have seemed true even just 15 years ago may now be known to be detrimental to things like a pitcher's arm or a hitter's power generation. This is not to say that looking to successful old school hitters and pitchers in action during live games won't reveal a ton of the same mechanics that many cutting-edge coaches purport today. In fact, it's quite the contrary. However, this is to say that some things verbally said, taught, and theorized about hitting or pitching in the past generations, particularly in terms of sports performance training and care, were either inaccurate or don't translate well to the modern game. From the perspective of how best to teach and train ball players technically, smart modern coaches often analyze past techniques with a do as they did in live situations and not as they said type of attitude. Thanks to advances in medical, biometric, and technical sciences, we can now approach with video, MRI, or overall clinically analyzed collectively more efficient ways to swing a bat, to safely increase a pitcher's velocity, or recover from a knee injury. All things that were once based much more on the innate intuition, haphazard trial and error, and grueling hard work that made Ted Williams' swing so sweet over half a century ago. Though talent, intuition, and hard work aside, Williams' empirical approach to personal pitch selection and mechanics, as showcased in The Science of Hitting, cannot be ignored as contributing components to his unparalleled success in the batter's box. Arguably, the greatest hitter of all time embraced a scientific approach to acquiring and understanding greatness. Intuition, filling out trials and errors, and hard work are still fundamental to baseball and softball success. Nevertheless, this additional modern scientific component helps these fundamental things become more efficiently tested, adjusted, and administered. Adding to this complexity is the fact that some techniques that inept or outdated instructors may teach appear to work at the lower levels of youth play and can leave a student seeming to mimic what sustainable movements, swings or pitches from successful professional athletes, look like to the untrained eye. Examples of these abound, from always swing level or its variation, always come down to the ball and through it, to squish the bug. For softball pitchers, there are things like adamantly teaching the so-called hello elbow over more important structural concerns. This program's scope does not explain what these techniques are exactly and why they don't always apply to players who want to play at elite levels. Their inclusion is only meant to highlight further the challenge of finding good information in a great private instructor. Disclaimer. This section's warning has nothing to do with the actual age of the instructor. Many of our game's elder statesmen are right at the cusp of this scientific and technological approach to training. In fact, be equally cautious of the young former players just out of college or the pros who found personal success just because they themselves were so physically gifted that they were able to overcome possible inefficiencies in their training or their approach.